Up to this point, we have mostly been working with a single tool in the scene or a single subtool. One of the cool things as well in ZBrush is that we can have multiple subtools in the project at the same time, which means that we can have the head like this, we can have his shirt, his glasses, his eyes, whatever it might be. It allows us to have it all in one tool. So how do we access this? Well, if we go under Tool, we have Subtools right here. This is something you really want to have enabled at most times, particularly if you are dealing with multiple subtools, which most of the time you are. So the first thing we can see here is how many do you want to see at any one time. Now, as you can see, it's set to 4. We can also, of course, just use the scroll bar here, but a lot of times you want this to be a lot higher. It has a maximum of 24, but that's plenty, because otherwise you would have a super long list. Something like 8 is what I usually prefer to set it to, because then you can see a lot, but it doesn't go too crazy. You can see here as well, when we are saving as tools, this is something you briefly mentioned before. When we save as tools, the top subtool will get the name of the tool. So that's why I prefer to just append a sphere or append a star, whatever it is, and then we make it invisible. You can see here, we can easily make something invisible if we go over here and we click the eye icon. So now if we have the eye selected and then we click the head, the eye of the head, the visibility toggle of the head. Now you can see that the head becomes invisible. But what happens if we click the eye on the current subtool? You see here, this is the current subtool, and we are clicking it, and nothing happens. This is one of the little quirks as well of ZBrush. If you are on the subtool, you can't hide it like so. So you can see here now, we hide this, and then we go over to the head. Now you can see it's hidden. But the currently selected subtool is always visible with no exceptions whatsoever. We can also make them all invisible or visible by holding on the Shift key and clicking on them here. And if we have polypaint on them, which we are covering in a later chapter, you can hit the Shift key and disable and enable polypainting on all of them at the same time as well, which is super handy. You can also change where they are in hierarchy by going here and just dragging them up and down. We can also use the hotkey Control Up and Control Down. This is something I'll do a lot. Let's say you have to take this all the way from the bottom and you have to take it all the way top, and it's a list of 40 subtools. You're just going to click a lot like this, which is super useful, instead of having to actually drag it to here and then you have to scroll up and drag it even further. We can also make folders as well. So if we want to organize this in a slightly nicer way, we can click here, New Folder, and we can make a folder. We can call this Clothing. And in this one, we can put in the clothing we want, which is really handy because this now allows us to hide all the clothing at any one time. Let's just select the eye here, and then we can just hide all the clothing. So you can very easily just drag something from here onto it. You can't unfortunately select multiple subtools at the same time. You can't, like you can in other software, like if you use one outliner, you can just shift click them and they will be selected. That's impossible to do here. Whatever you click on is the currently selected one. It becomes a bit annoying though if you're dealing with bigger scenes to have to go into the subtool list and click them every single time. A better way to do it is to hold down the Alt key and simply just click on the one in the viewport. We've already done this a few times in the series, and this is the way I'm working every single day I'm working with ZBrush. Like, I basically don't use this here as a selection thing. I use this more as a scene organization tool. It also has some pretty easy to understand features, like we have rename. You can just add a name to it, like you can call this Geo, and it's renamed. We can also set this to all low. This will take all the subtools and put them all to the lowest level. We can set them all to high, and that does exactly the opposite. So if you have to export out all your subtools, for instance, you already worked on here, you have to export them out, you can just hit all low, and it just makes it a bit easier. You can also copy paste them. So if you want to, for instance, copy paste the head of this into another subtool, into another tool, let's say we have the star here, and we want to copy this into another one. We can just hit copy, and then we can go here and we can hit paste. This is incredibly useful. You want to use this all the time for general troubleshooting. You can also duplicate it as well. Instead of copy pasting, you can just duplicate the head, and now you have the head, and it's identical in every single way when it comes to its topology, sculpting, whatever it might be. We can also append something. That's like if we have the star here, for instance, and we want to put the star into here. We can now hit append, and then we can just append this, and now we have appended successfully the star into it. We can also delete a subtool. This is where it gets a bit nasty, because deleting is non-undoable. Basically, everything you do here is non-undoable, but particularly deleting is super non-undoable. If you duplicate something and then you want to undo it, you can just delete the duplicate. But if you delete something, there isn't a way to undo the deleting. So delete, and now we get a message saying like, hey, this is an undoable operation. Are you sure you want to do it? And you probably just want to click OK. If it's always OK like this, that gets a bit dangerous because now you click it and it's just gone forever. Another thing to note as well is that if you look up here in the history and we just do some sculpting on it now, let's just do some general sculpting like this. And then we go to the eye and we do some general sculpting on this. You can see that the two are independent of each other. Which means that undo history is stored in each subtool. So if you, for instance, now you would do a stroke here on the back of the head, and then we go to the clothing, and do a stroke here as well. We'll do 2 strokes. And if we undo this, it's not going to undo this stroke here. It doesn't matter how many times. If you just keep sculpting here and you hit undo, it's always going to just go back to the original state of this subtool. This is super important to know because this is a really unusual thing in ZBrush, that undo is not a global setting. We also have some features below here as well. This is the majority of the time where you're going to be spending majority of the time, but we can also look into something like split. So this is really handy if you want to split up your subtools in different ways. So let's see what happens if we try to do this now. Split is going to splitting based on polygroups in this case. So let's try this now. Go to the highest level, or lowest level, doesn't really matter. And we try to group split and we're like, hey, non-undoable operation. And now you can see that the head has now been split into 2 different parts. This is really useful for things like teeth, where you have, maybe you have 10 different teeth in different polygroups, and you just want to split them out in different subtools. You can easily do this now. Do the same thing here with buttons, actually. So here we have all the buttons, and let's say we want to split these into separate subtools. We can now go under polygroups, and we can do auto groups here, which is going to make 1 polygroup per model. You can see here though it's not going to be great because it has each button has 3 polygroups. But regardless, now we can go down here and we can hit split and group split. And now you can see that we're going to get a bunch of more subtools. So this is how you can increase the amount of subtools rapidly. You can see here now how big this actually is, because now you have all the buttons. And before we had groups, this was a real nightmare. So now you can see that we have the all individual subtools. What if we want to merge something together though? Let's say we want to merge few different pieces together. We can now just go under merge and we can merge down. Now this works based on where they are in the hierarchy. So if we now go down and merge down, it actually merges like the way it works in Photoshop. We hit Control E, where it actually just merges this. So it will merge this to this. So if we hit merge down now, we can just see what happens. And let's hit always OK. And now you can just see what happens. It just keeps merging all these different pieces together. So now we have merged all of this. Merge down, and there we go. You can also merge visible. This is really handy. So you use this all the time as well, where now you want to make a whole different subtool based on the visible parts. So let's try this. Merge visible. And now we have it here. Now this contains every single thing in a separate tool. This one here you want to be wary of, because if you have UVs on your model, you have to make sure that UVs is enabled. Otherwise, it's going to merge them without actually merging the UVs. So which means the UVs are going to be completely deleted, which is incredibly detrimental to your workflow. So that's in short how you use subtools. It's an incredibly easy and intuitive way of working. Most of it is very self-explanatory when it comes to it. Stuff to keep in mind is that undos is based on each individual subtool. And if you delete something or do any operation to it, like deleting, duplicating, appending, that is not undoable. So if you delete a subtool, you are in for a lot of trouble if you didn't intend to do it. Then the only way to get it back is to actually load your tool, original subtool again, or load your original tool.